I know we're here to talk economics. It's impossible to do economics without the politics. And I want to go back to the US. It's an election year, which to my mind makes it almost unimaginable, unthinkable that there would be fiscal consolidation in an election year. Instead, it'll be more promises. I'm curious what you think, if there is going to be consolidation that is imposed on the US rather than by their election, or by their choice. Let me not mix the terms. So if there were to be some type of shock, what would be the flag or the sign from the US economy that things aren't going well?
Well, I think you can look back at recent history. You can look at what happened just 3 or 4 months ago. I think the discussion was starting to shift very quickly in October and November of last year, when, as I mentioned, all of a sudden the 10-year rate on US Treasuries was reaching 5%. And a lot of that increase was not because the markets then expected the Federal Reserve to increase interest rates. So it was not reflecting expected increase in the Fed funds rate in the future. It was really reflecting what we call a term premium. It was reflecting a lack of appetite, if you want, by the market about these 10-year treasuries that were issued and in the context of very large volume of issuance. And so then there was a question of how much appetite the market will have. And the discussion was clearly moving in the direction of, well, something will need to be done. And so I think this is a sense in which there can be market pressure coming in. Now, in that particular episode, at some point the market got focused on the disinflation path and the pivot by central banks, and optimism came back because now the narrative became, well, the policy rate is going to go from 5% to something, it will, depending on the number of cuts you expect, it will be coming down to 4% or maybe whatever. And so therefore that's going to ease also some of the fiscal pressure. And so some of that pressure waned. But it could come back, and I think this is the sense in which it needs to be addressed ahead of time. Now, you're exactly right that not just in the US, but in all countries that are facing election, I think the promises of fiscal stabilization that are now on the books have to be taken maybe with a little bit of a grain of salt. First, because maybe current administrations will not want to stick to them because they have an election fight an election battle to win, but then also because maybe the next administration, if there is a change in political orientation, might not be willing to be helped by the previous promises. So there is uncertainty there in that direction. By the way, it's not necessarily uncertainty that always goes in the direction of having less adjustment. A good example is what we saw with what we are seeing right now with Argentina.
Yeah.
The new administration is very committed to reduce public deficits, to consolidate public debt, is making major efforts, and so there's been, from that perspective, a very positive development in Argentina.